We have some huge news to discuss today, as yesterday night the Toronto Maple Leafs made a major signing Jacob Quillen to a deal. So I'm going to break down that signing and discuss what it can mean going forward for the Leafs on this episode, as well as Sheldon Keefe. He spoke out on one of the Toronto Maple Leafs lines that we all are beginning to love, and he had some interesting things to say there. Stay tuned for all that in this episode of Leafs Digest. Before we do, quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. We are on the road to 7,000 subscribers. If you enjoy daily Leafs content, as the playoffs are very fast approaching, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, Darius, a lot to discuss today. Obviously, the Maple Leafs got a big win yesterday. Austin Matthews hit 62. But today we're going to be talking about a huge signing they made kind of before that game or during that game. And a pretty big signing. There were a lot of teams out there who were looking to add this guy, this prospect, I guess you can call it. And Elliot Friedman dropped the bomb saying there was word Toronto was signing Dartmouth, Nova Scotia native Jacob Quillen out of Quinnipiac. Won a national championship last year. Lots of competition for his services this year. And then it became official by Chris Johnson, saying they've signed him to a 2-year entry-level contract. He had 17 goals and 46 points in 39 games this season for them. And a bit of a Friedman bomb today, or I guess yesterday. And what are your thoughts on this signing? A lot of Leafs fans are super excited. I know there were a lot of other teams out there. I think the Bruins were another one who were really going for him. It could be a decent fit, but ultimately, the Leafs got him.
Finally, the Leafs take something from the Bruins. Yeah, the Bruins were in the mix for this player, and it sounded like he was probably going to sign there. I think that was what the rumor was, but he ends up coming to the Leafs, which is really nice for Leaf fans. And this is a very good player, and he won a national championship last year. And little known fact, like he beat, well, I shouldn't say little known fact, but for Leaf fans, he actually beat Matthew Nyes in the final, Matthew Nyes' team. And then after that game, Matthew Nyes joined the Leafs and obviously went on that playoff run with them. So this is a very good player, had a very strong season this year. He's another center, nice skilled guy that's going to come up. He's still relatively young. I think he's only 22 years old. And again, he had a great season. Again, this year they got eliminated. Obviously, he won't be playing for the national championship this year, but strong season last year. Continued it this year. He's only continuing to get better. He was the 8th ranked prospect coming out of the NCAA. So lots to like from the Leafs here. They steal somebody that looks like they were going to sign with somebody else. And he ends up signing with the Leafs. I think that's a good sign for, if you're a Leafs fan, that they are able to pick up young prospects like this out of the NCAA, because normally they would sign elsewhere. So I think that's good. I think it's awesome if you're a Leafs fan, and lots to look forward to with this player.
I liked it a lot, and a few of my friends when the signing went down, they were upset because some of them are fans of the teams that were going for it. And if you're unfamiliar with them, 6 foot, 201 pounds, awarded the best defensive forward, Canadian, intriguing depth ad. And you also just mentioned, you can see right here by Elite Prospects, Jacob Quillen was the 8th ranked skater in the EPR Ringside NCAA free agency guide. You can get some information on him there. He's 21 years old, born 2002, center, shoots left, 6 foot. And you can look at his ratings there for 1-9. He's a very solid player. Obviously, he still has some room to develop. Last season, he put up 39 total points in 34 games. But I think in general, he's going to be a very good player going forward for the Leafs. And I will ask you this, and I don't think this is going to happen at all. I saw some rumblings of it. When do you think he actually plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Do you think he comes up and somehow makes his way into the team for the playoffs? I highly doubt it. But there's some, I don't say rumblings, there are some fans out there who are calling for him to get a chance. But we'll discuss the kind of the kid line that we're discussing later. What are your thoughts on this? When do you think he's gonna make an impact on the actual Toronto Maple Leafs team now that they signed him to the 2-year entry level deal?
Well, listen, anything is possible. When you look at last year too, they could have called up a Marley, but instead they call up Matthew Nyes, and he actually had a pretty significant impact in the Tampa series, and he scored a couple big goals, obviously in the Florida series. So anything could happen. I don't see it happening because they've stocked up on injury insurance the Leafs have this year going into the playoffs. So I don't really see it happening, barring something crazy happens or they go on a crazy deep playoff run. But I would expect to see him in the preseason next year. I'm sure they'll give him some runway there, see what he has, and to make the team out of next year. Again, I think he's still relatively young, and there's a lot of runway for him to get better, but he is showing signs that he'll probably be in the NHL one day very soon, and that's great. But I wouldn't expect him to, be thrown into the fire like Matthew Nyes was last year, but I think we could see him relatively soon. I think the Leafs have a lot of prospects we could be seeing, and with the cap situation being what it is, I think we will be seeing them very shortly.
Yeah, I agree, and probably not as soon as some fans want it to happen. But let us know what your thoughts are on the signing. Obviously, a very, very good player. And the Leafs actually got a signing that other teams wanted, which is hasn't been something that's been too common so far in the past few years. But let's touch on this now. Keefe speaks out on the line, specifically the kid line, which includes Nyes, Holmberg. And you can look at it here. This is, I'm not going to read this entire thing, but he spoke in the Nyes, Holmberg, and Robertson line. And again, I'm not going to read this entire thing. It's huge. But he basically went on to say that put him in some tough spots on purpose, going to see how it goes. Some of it was good, some of it was not so good. And you can just fast forward, a tough opponent over there, but they'll be better having gone through it tonight. So basically saying that yesterday obviously was a learning experience for them, and that a lot of their players a lot of these young guys are obviously, he's doing it to get them in experienced spots. Obviously Nyes and Robertson are fairly young, even Holmberg as well. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on this line in general? Do you want to stick with him? There's another quote which I'll show you in a minute, but I just want to get your thoughts on this quote first as I leave it up here for them to read.
Well, I loved the line last night. They had a very rough start to the game, but I think they really found it after that, and they looked very good together. Like, I think the chemistry was great. It was off the charts. They were running around all game, and then even when Holmberg kind of got hit there against one of the defensemen from Florida, I forget his name, but Nyes came in to defend his teammate, and we're seeing more and more of that out of the Leafs, and I like that from that line last night. And obviously they were putting the puck in the back of the net too with a couple goals there, so it was great. I loved what I saw from that line. Now, with the Leafs getting healthy come playoff time, presumably, I'm not sure if they stick together as a third line, but I did like the work last night, especially against a good team. And I like that Sheldon Keefe, he was under some criticism for doing that quote you just showed, for putting them in a tough spot against a very good team, and Florida obviously almost coming back in the game. But I don't really hate that. I think he's right in a way where they are going to be better for being put in that spot, because if you're always relying on the same guys, some of these guys are not going to get the experience, and maybe there's an icing in the playoffs where they do have to be on the ice and know what to do in a situation like that. So I didn't necessarily hate that. It would have sucked if Florida did come back in the game, because that is a big game. They closed the gap in the standings, which was great. But I liked what I saw from that line last night. I'm just not sure if the line combinations will allow for it come playoff time. But you never know with more injuries and if guys are not 100%. So I did like what I saw. And for the time being, obviously, Marner's still out of the lineup, and they're missing Yarncroke, who most people have actually forgotten about. He's expected to return for playoff time too. So I don't know. We'll just have to see. But I don't suspect that they'll be together come playoff time.
And that is what Sheldon Keefe also had to say. He said, on the kid line of Nyes, Holmberg, and Robertson, there are great possibilities there, and who knows what the future holds. But when we get healthy, I don't see it as a trio, and that's something else that he said, which kind of aligns with what you said there. I mean, ultimately, if they're playing great, it'll be hard for obviously him to change it up, but as the team gets healthy with Marner and Yarncroke, they're going to have to see what works best, which is a bit unfortunate that they're still injured because the playoffs are very, very soon, and I don't know how much time they're going to have. We don't know when officially they're coming back, how much time they're going to have to mess with the lines and see exactly what they want going in, but I think ultimately they'll end up being fine.
Yeah, definitely, and I think when guys like Marner come back, I think they're going to shift the lines, because watching the game last night, personally, I'm thinking now Bertuzzi can probably jump up to the first line. He's been playing well enough that maybe it could be Bertuzzi, Matthews, and Marner, and then you kind of play with things. Nyes probably drops down to the third line. So, if Yarncroke isn't ready for playoffs, it is a possibility we do see the same third line out there. But again, assuming Yarncroke comes back, he probably won't be. But I think they're still going to play with the lines a lot, and they've been playing with the defense a lot. Nothing is set in stone, and we're very close to the playoffs, so it's going to be interesting to see what they settle on, and hopefully it's soon, because I'm not a big fan of settling on the lineup game one and everyone's kind of lost trying to figure out who they're playing with. So hopefully it's soon, but I do think this lineup is going to look a little different come game one.
Yeah, and that hopefully they can continue to win games with the current lineup that they have, given all their injuries. That'll wrap it up. Let's know what your thoughts are on the signing and Sheldon Keefe's long, lengthy comments on this line. And thank you guys for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you're new, and we'll see you tomorrow.